You are listening to an exclusive preview of this week's episode of STF Underground.
So with that in mind, Raw and SmackDown, of course, is going to lead to SummerSlam this coming weekend. As of this recording, of course, if you're listening to this after that, you probably already know what happened to SummerSlam. But anyway, we're going to give you our SummerSlam predictions here moving forward, kind of review some of the things that have happened over the past week leading up and feeding into these matches. But overall, give you some of our predictions. If you guys are placing bets, if you guys are, kind of wagering with friends on this, don't listen to us. We just give you our opinions, and especially don't listen to Fox with his track record. But you
can only go up with me, okay? The law of averages says I'm gonna get these right.
I will say, and kind of spoiler alert on all my predictions here, as I'm taking a look at all of the matches, I don't see many championships changing, going forward. I actually see a lot of the championships kind of staying in the hands of their rightful owners. As far as where the championships are and as far as where the wrestlers are right now, I think that everybody's in a pretty good spot, if I'm being honest, with where the talent is.
We may or may not see that. I think there are a couple, especially the world titles, that could change hands. But I really think this is a WrestleMania caliber card. I don't think I've been this excited for a main roster WWE pay-per-view in a very, very long time. And I think it's got the good blend of bringing back the old timers. I get it. And we will both kind of have our gripes about that. But they've got some matches from a wrestling standpoint that could absolutely blow the roof off of the place in Toronto.
So let's take a look at some of these matches. Let's break down some of these matches. We'll start with SummerSlam. We'll go into NXT after that. And then if you're sticking around with us, make sure that you stick around for some of our AEW talk. And later on, of course, as we mentioned at the top of the show, our interview with Sean Spears, formerly known as Ty Dillinger, at the end of the show. So let's start with SummerSlam. Starting with the match, we have Kevin Owens versus the best in the world, Shane McMahon. Now, we've seen this match kind of have this back and forth heat. Obviously, Shane has been a tyrannical Mr. McMahon kind of thing, while Owens has been the Stone Cold of the story. This kind of took an interesting turn this week on SmackDown, where Owens challenged Shane to put his career up on the line as well. From as far as we know, that's not happening. Shane turned it down, and Elias has made himself known as, part of the third party in this match. This one goes either way for me. I'd like to say, and just because I want to see it happen, I think that Kevin Owens comes out on top on this one.
Yeah, I've got Owens. He's one of the hottest babyface acts right now. He's managed to get his version of the Stone Cold Stunner over and associated with him, which is not easy to do. Not when it's such an iconic move from one of the greatest of all time. But it was cool. Steve Austin said, it was either on his podcast or in an interview, he said, keep hitting the stunner, keep the rocket strapped to Kevin Owens. So cool to see the Rattlesnake's blessings there. But it only makes sense. I think it would be a really stupid decision to curb that with Shane winning. And with the stipulation, I got to go with KO, and I hope there isn't some dumbassery with like Sami Zayn Swerve helping Shane or something stupid.
Well, especially with the way that SummerSlam is generally the payoff, just kind of like WrestleMania is, I think that Kevin Owens is the one that does have to win this match. Going forward here, we're talking about Finn Balor versus The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. So talking about Bray Wyatt this week, he obviously made another big splash, I guess, so to speak, when he interrupted the match between Cedric Alexander and Drew McIntyre, attacking special guest referee Kurt Angle, locking in the mandible claw. I know you and I were both excited to see the mandible claw a couple weeks ago with Mick Foley. For me, it's obvious The Fiend is winning this one, Bray Wyatt is winning this one, and Finn Balor is going to go away for a little bit of time. Fox, what are your thoughts? And also, are you upset that as of right now, we're not seeing the Demon?
Yeah, I'm not too upset about it. This match might be the easiest predictions, might be like your free bingo space, but yeah, it's definitely going to be the Fiend winning here. I really love the reactions he's getting now. They're doing it perfect. You know, we've talked about it. Plunge has talked about it. Where you want to keep it in short doses. It's a big deal when he comes out. You know, the lights and everything go out. I like that it shuts everything down. Kind of wish it would shut down the commentators too, because they keep talking over the moment, and I hate that. It's just really aggravating. And Michael Cole he needs to stop talking. So, but the point is that it's awesome. It's a big deal. You see the crowd stand up. They're like looking for him and everything. Awesome. The mandible claw is great. Lets him, take out, guys that can't take bumps, and that's really, really cool. Yeah, I guess the Demon could be like a last minute surprise. Usually they advertise the Demon Balor. That kind of fills me with a little bit of fear that it's like, oh, well, he beats the man, Finn Balor, handily, and then the Demon comes back around Survivor Series and wins. And then I would just be mad again, right? And I think it's like he's got to beat legit competition.
Do you feel like Bray Wyatt right now is channeling his inner Undertaker or maybe Sting from the WCW?
He's definitely as intriguing of a character. When you build it up correctly, when you're patient with a character like that, and don't give up your entire bag of tricks all at once, you keep having these aces up your sleeve. You keep it interesting. I'm just interested in that match to see his entrance. Like I think that's worth the admission of that match alone, is just to see like what are they going to do with his entrance?
Does it come out to music?
Yeah, is he going to come out with like? They could do something so cool, and they've thought a lot of the minute details. I'm sure that an entrance for the Fiend is going to be something that they've thought about extensively. So I'm really excited about that. I'm sure it'll do well. It'll be funny if it starts out with the Firefly Funhouse music and just shut it down. They'll do something cool. I mean, it's like the most overproduced segment in a good way. So
maybe creepy crawlies, kind of 3D in the middle of the ring.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to be surprised. Oh, please don't. No, the LED comes. No. Oh, no. I'll take ways to derail Bray Wyatt for 500, Alex. No, I mean, look, even something simple, it all shuts down and then like maybe he just appears in the ring. I mean, they could really take some interesting ways with it. But yeah, I really hope it's not like the Demon comes back at a later date and gets his win back.
Up next, the United States Championship is on the line when United States Champion AJ Styles defends against Ricochet. Fox, question for you regarding this. Are you happy with what they've done with the now OC, even though people are sick of their name, but that aside, are you happy with what they've done? Gallows and Anderson winning the tag team championships. And where do you feel like they go post SummerSlam too?
Yeah, I'm really, really happy with what they've done with Gallows and Anderson, and I think they're utilizing them in the way that we thought they'd be utilized like 2 years ago, right? And then for whatever reason, they literally, it wasn't even like they used them badly, they just didn't use them at all. And when you've got two guys that are so talented, I'm a huge I think Gallows is an awesome big man.
That face paint that he had on Monday was incredible.
It was great, right? And they have such a good, unique look. They look like a tag team. Obviously, their notoriety in Japan is well known. I love Carl Anderson. He's one of the crispest wrestlers in the ring. I think they're using him fine. I don't mind that they're. I mean, if you're gonna be the muscle or the kind of the henchman of anybody, AJ Styles is a great person to kind of hitch your wagon to.
I think that all of this leads to Ricochet picking up the victory here. Ricochet has really been that underdog fighting from underneath. I think that he, it was up in the air whether or not he should have lost the title in the first place, but I think that he is going to be what they consider the future. Obviously, what he does in the ring is incredible, and AJ Styles can be used pretty much anywhere. I think if they keep using the OC the way that they need, or the way that they have been, these guys can be in a feud with just about anybody and moving forward and don't need to be part of any kind of title picture. To me, Ricochet picked up the victory.
I'm glad we finally disagree on one. I've got AJ. I could definitely see that scenario, and I think for me, I'll just be so happy with the match that I would be fine with it. But I like the idea that they've all got titles, right? And it gives that group a ton of legitimacy, right? It gives any time. It's kind of the same way that it's with the New Day, where you've got Kofi and flanked by the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, Woods and Big E. I like that. I like that they're doing that more. You're almost in an organic way seeing some of these natural stables come back, right? And I like that, and I think it's the same on NXT with potentially the Undisputed Era, which we'll talk about, and I think it's good, man. I think AJ, it's not like he needs the win, but I think that stable needs to continue rolling on. I don't think Ricochet will lose anything, and I'm just excited because I feel like they knew that they were going to have a blow-off at SummerSlam, so as good as those previous matches were, I feel like they were kind of holding back too.
Yeah, it's funny because before we saw Aleister Black and Sami Zayn take place on SmackDown, it was kind of a toss-up to me what would be match of the night between that and AJ and Ricochet. And now I think with Sami Zayn and Aleister Black, now for sure obviously took place on SmackDown, match of the night to me goes to AJ Styles and Ricochet. AJ because he's AJ Styles, and Ricochet just because he's for sure one of the best wrestlers in the world right now. Going into the SmackDown Women's Championship, Bayley is defending against Ember Moon. Fox, who do you got in this one?
I think Bayley. I think she retains. I could definitely see this one going, both ways with kind of the surprise victory. But I think this is just the first chapter. I think they're going to. One of them is, well, let me put it this way. I think Ember has more potential to turn, and then they actually have a proper, because right now it's babyface, and typically those don't last very long. Typically it morphs into a heel versus face. But I've got Bayley retaining in this one, but I don't think the feud's over.
I've got Bayley retaining as well, just because I don't think that it's time for Ember Moon. I would eventually love to see Ember Moon as champ, but I feel like it's just been too short and she hasn't been established enough for this to happen. And, for Bayley's championship, I'd like that to be a little bit more established moving forward. Mm-hmm. I think that, and I predicted this last month as well because of the reports that are coming out there, but I'm still waiting, just like everybody, for that Sasha Banks return. So I think that this could definitely be the spot where that happens.
Yeah, she's due to come back any day now, right? According to those reports. I think Bayley needs to continue to establish her reign, like you said. And once Ember Moon, because she is invariably, at least unless something catastrophic happens, will be a women's champion one day. So I want it to be a bigger deal when she does, because honestly, it's kind of been a pretty tepid feud.
Yeah, totally agree. Moving forward to the next match, the Raw Women's Championship is on the line when Becky Lynch defends her championship against Natalya. Let's start by talking about Natalya. And I'll let you do most of the talking here because I think most of the people listening that have listened to us know how I feel about Natalya and how I feel like she's just a charisma vacuum. That when I see her on TV, it's just hard to watch. So, Fox, how do you feel like she has been over the last couple weeks in this feud with Becky?
So I've told you I'm not a huge Natalya fan in terms of promos and things like that. I really enjoy watching her in the ring. I think she's very, very good in the ring, very technically sound. I like that this is a submission match. I think it adds a different kind of dynamic to it. I thought this was a really good build. I actually think the first you kind of thought it was cringy, which is totally fair. But I think like that first promo that Natalya kind of cut on Becky, I thought it made Natalya look a little bit better. And I think that throughout this feud, it's been cool to. I hope they continue to build Natalya like the submission machine of the women's division, because they don't really have that right now. That's kind of a role that could be definitely carved out. And I think some of the things that you don't like about Natalya, which I agree, is kind of she's the crazy cat lady, and then she's kind of just Beth Phoenix's sidekick, or she hasn't really established like her own identity, right? And then even back when Tyson Kidd was wrestling, she was just, but she's allowed to show some of that on Total Divas. But I think that if they just kept her kind of like a little, kind of more of just that badass that whatever, I'm just going to break your back with a sharpshooter, I think they could do really well with her. So I've enjoyed the build to this. I think Becky retains. I never picked the hometown favorite, the Toronto, or well, she's Canadian, not hometown, but I think Lynch retains. Although, I don't know, Becky Lynch has been annoying me as of late.
Do you feel like, and actually, first off, to your point about Natalya, I will say at the very least, what she has been doing with the not releasing of the sharpshooter and kind of being this like pit bull dog kind of thing, I have liked that about her as far as what Natalya's been doing. On the mic, she's cringy.
Sure.
In that tag team match, I feel like she seemed the most non-fluid, which is weird for me to say because normally I do think that she's a good hand, so to speak, in wrestling.
Oof. It's like you're trying to compliment her, and then you're like, "Oh, hold on, backhand."
She's definitely that reliable person in the women's division to be there. But going back to Becky, do you feel like Becky? You mentioned she's annoying you. Do you feel like she's lost her edge over the last kind of couple weeks?
I think that she's working her way back into my good books, if that makes sense. I think I was afraid they did like irreparable damage going into Extreme Rules with her and Seth, and they've wisely backed off of that. So she's getting back into that, confident, like I'm just going to do what I want. I think she needs to be what I loved about her, especially when the man persona came out. We got to remember, she was a heel. Like, she was a heel, and she was supposed to be the heel in the story, and everyone got behind her. It was very anti-hero-ish. I think she needs to get back to some of that. I love when she does the no F's given persona, and I think she's getting back to that. I don't think she needs to do some of the pandering that she does when it sounds too scripted, when she sounds like to me, she's not funny. Okay, let me put it that way. She's not funny, and I don't think she has she has a great sense of humor on Twitter. I've seen, and then off camera, she's actually quite funny. But what they write for her, or the way that they portray her, doesn't work for her character. So she just needs to be just the bad man cometh, right? And that's what she is. She's broken through all those glass ceilings and barriers, and she deserves every bit of that. First woman on the cover of ESPN magazine, woman wrestler, and then now she's on the 2K20 cover. She deserves all that. I think she just needs to let her be herself, and let her be just like kind of that really like no cares given.
To be fair, I feel like she should have been the only person on that 2K cover.
Yep.
But, that's neither here nor there.
Gotta have Poochie on the cover.
Yeah, right. To be fair, with the whole her and Seth Rollins, obviously that was a little bit weird. But to your point, and I mentioned it on the Rhino Wrestling Review podcast last week that we were talking about, one of the things that Becky did really well was that whole, I'm a badass heel, so people are going to like me. It was kind of the Stone Cold Steve Austin effect, and people liked her. I mean, essentially, like what you mentioned, people were cheering her during her, heel run with Charlotte, and that's the whole kind of double turn that happened with Charlotte and Becky. So I think that is what she should go back to. And she's had a couple of those moments where she actually attacked Natalya from behind. So you kind of don't know who's playing what. Mm-hmm. My prediction is Becky does retain, at least I hope, because if she doesn't, we riot kind of moment. But, I think I'm going to just...
You're going to type angrily on the internet is what you're going to do.
I will. I think that what I'm very interested to see with how over Becky has been is to see who the Canadian crowd is actually going to cheer. Is it going to be Becky or is it going to be Natalya?
And it also, that depends on how they portray Natalya also. Like, as much as we're talking about Becky, they have a chance to really establish Natalya in a really great performance. And I think that could be the way that we've just sort of dismissed, there's no chance Natalya is going to win. Play that into the match, maybe have Becky not take her as seriously to start the match. And then, like we said, that pit bull, that submission machine, just have Natalya, get it in, you know what I mean? And, I think it could be, just up the brutality with the intensity. And I think you could have a good match here. But I'm not expecting a classic or anything, but I would just want to see a great showing from both.
So moving into the next couple of matches, before we do, we're going to hop into In the Mind of Mr. Main Event. For those of you listening to this show for the first time, we hop into the mind of Mr. Main Event each and every week. Mr. Main Event is a longtime wrestling fan, former pro wrestler. He will definitely introduce himself here in just a minute. But, we hop into the mind to get his take into some of the biggest topics for wrestling each week. And this week, he covers the legends, the old people that keep coming back to the WWE. Let's take it away, Mr. Main Event.
It's me. It's
MME.
Whoop-de-ding-dong.
Welcome to In the Mind of Mr. Main Event. I am Mr. Main Event, a lifelong wrestling fan who's gone through many phases of fandom, including being a smart mark, a backyard wrestler, a trained professional wrestler, and now I'm back doing what I love, sitting back, watching, and being a fan of my favorite kind of entertainment, professional wrestling. Let me start off this week by saying I respect my elders. This week's edition of In the Mind of Mr. Main Event is not going to be bashing old people just because they're old. It's going to be bashing people because they're old, not entertaining, and ruining their legacies. Most of my favorite wrestlers of all time are over 50 years old, and just like my own grandparents, I prefer memories of the times when they were younger rather than older. Was this opening statement a little bit of a stretch while trying to relate it to wrestling? Probably. This week, I try to answer the question: do WWE legends have a place wrestling in today's current product? As a fan of wrestling growing up in the 80s and 90s, it's no surprise that my favorite pro wrestlers are older. I would go so far as to argue that the late 90s are probably the best times in pro wrestling history. And yes, it's a biased opinion, but I stand by it. There was nothing to me like the WWF WCW wars or ECW in general. And since they all have pretty much become one now, I really enjoy when the WWE does shows like they did a couple weeks ago, where we get to see all the legends from all the leagues come on out. The end of Raw with Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, and Stone Cold was a feel-good moment, and all the 30-something nerds like myself were loving it. The question I kept asking myself all night was, why is this happening? Was it some kind of anniversary, or maybe the 1500th episode of Raw? No, it was literally just a gathering of anyone who would accept the invitation to be there. And while I think it was pointless, I still loved it. Now, I would do things differently if I were in the WWE. Instead of bringing everyone out for one episode, I would bring in a different past wrestler to each Raw throughout the year. Maybe not every week, but the point being, spread your legends around. You could use them in different ways, and it would keep it exciting as to who might be around this week. Legends definitely have a place in the current WWE, and they don't need to be used just in a group setting. But that's not the question we're answering. We're answering the question, do WWE legends have a place wrestling in today's current product? And let me tell you, my answer is much different. I don't think anyone over, let's say, 45 should be wrestling in the WWE. Not as a rule, and there's always exceptions, and even something like the recent Roman Reigns and Undertaker versus Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre match was not bad at all. I for one still pop huge when the Undertaker's theme hits unexpectedly. But that match was definitely an outlier. Let me tell you how much combined interest I had in these recent matches. Triple H versus Batista, which was way too long. Triple H and Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker and Kane, which was way too bad. Undertaker versus Rusev, which is pretty unnecessary. Undertaker versus Goldberg, which was just plain awful. I had a total of 0% interest in these matches, and for good reason. I knew they would suck. Shawn Michaels is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I do not want to ever see him wrestle again. And why don't I have any interest in these matches? Not because the guys are older and I'm not giving them a chance. I watched all those matches hoping to see some of that old wrestling magic, but what happened was the opposite. It's ruining my fandom of these guys. Most specifically, The Undertaker. At one point, I would have had him on my Mount Rushmore of WWE legends, but between the American Badass gimmick and anything that he's done after his WrestleMania match with Roman Reigns, I actually lost some respect for the dead man. Ultimately, who cares what I think, but I just don't think these legends are doing themselves any favors, and they're taking away time from the current day roster, which is a roster that's larger than any time in the history of wrestling. In the end, the WWE will do whatever they want. If these old guys are still what the people want to see, then just make sure that the ramp is steep enough so they can get enough momentum to get to the ring. Maybe that's a little harsh, but the WWE should keep the legends in the product, just not in the ring. Hey, I'm old too, but I'm on Twitter. Argue with me at NoBigWeevils. That's NoBigWeevils.
She's an old lady. I mean, look at her. She's old. You can't just take her stuff. She's too old.
All right, thanks, Mr. Main Event, for that take, and I absolutely cannot wait to give mine on this, and Fox, I'm sure that you're hungry to give yours on this, and we're going to do it in the way of talking first and foremost about Charlotte versus Trish Stratus. Now, this is a very interesting match to me because Trish has obviously been out of the ring for the majority of the last 10 years. I know she's had the here's and there's with the Royal Rumble. She had her tag team match with Alexa Bliss and everything. So it's kind of been here and there where this has gone. But one question that I have for you, what has more attention right now in the WWE? Or at least maybe in the eyes of the WWE? Charlotte and Trish, Becky and Natalya, or Bayley and Ember Moon? What do you feel has the most attention?
Well, easily Charlotte Trish. They've built that as like a marquee match. And I said at the top of the show that this feels like a WrestleMania card, right? And most of the time there are world title matches, men and women, that their matches get overshadowed by the marquee match, right? The special attraction kind of match. And that's what this is. And I feel like it should be. I feel like Becky Natalya, it's not like, okay, it's not, Bayley Sasha, right? Where that could be like, hey, there's a little bit more storyline and it's like a better bit, right? It's not like the equivalent of like Kofi Orton. So Charlotte Trish definitely has the most attention. I didn't know Trish was coming back, and I popped when she came back. Now, do I hope that she doesn't stink it up in the ring and ruin any memory I have of her in the ring? Absolutely. But that's another topic. Your question is what has more attention, and it's Charlotte Trish, and I think that should have more attention than Bayley and Ember, just because that hasn't been built up very well.
I feel like that's such a problem that Trish has more attention than either women's championship match. And you put it right, and I feel like it's neither right nor wrong that, the marquee matches, these legends coming back, some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it as far as whether they're taking the spot of these other women. But I don't feel like it should be built up more than the championship matches. To kind of go back to Mr. Main Event's point, I am not a fan. I personally do not want to see Trish Stratus or later, and we'll talk about Goldberg here. I don't want to see them in matches. I don't want to see Shawn Michaels come back and ruin his name. We've mentioned it time after time. For me, I do not want to see The Undertaker come back and put up a stinker every single time, other than, his last match and his tag team match with Roman Reigns against Drew McIntyre and Shane, which is okay in a tag team match. But otherwise, in a singles match, Trish versus Charlotte, I think that for her time, Trish was pretty good, but comparatively to the athletes of today, to the way that Charlotte carries a match, I'm not excited for this one like a lot of other people are.
So it's cool because that's the build to the match, right? Where it's, hey, you did good for your day, but now let's let the elite athletes of today take over, right? Now there's a difference. There's a categorical difference here. I'll tell you what it is between Charlotte, Trish, and Goldberg, Ziggler, and even The Undertaker, right? And you mentioned Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels had a full stop, period, finish, this is my career threat on the line match at WrestleMania. And, the Saudi Arabia thing, to me, was a misstep, but there was so many zeros, they needed one of those, options clearinghouse checks to fit it. But the difference is that, Trish comes back, a few times, but she's not holding the women's title. She's not, and I truly believe that Charlotte's going to win this match, right? But how many times can you say that that's the case with Goldberg? How many times can you say that's the case with The Undertaker? And if you believe that the Charlotte Trish match is going to be the same, is going to be booked the same as Goldberg Ziggler, then you've completely lost bearing on predictions. You know what I'm saying? So I think Charlotte will win. I think Trish has a good showing. I'm excited about this match. Like I said, I had no idea Trish was coming back. And when I saw her, I was like, heck yeah. Well, she was a catalyst to my puberty. So I got a soft corner there.
So you have both Canadian women losing, if I can get that straight.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I have Charlotte winning. And I really hope if Trish did win, which I think would be a mistake because then it would just prove your point. And I can't have that. Is just, she wins with like a fluke roll up or something like that. I'd rather you just lose and put on a great match and get a standing ovation at the end. She's absolutely capable. I don't think you're giving Trish enough credit for what she did back in the day. I still remember that Trish Lita match that main evented Raw is one of the best matches in Raw history. So,
and a lot of people do.
So,
but I think a lot of it is marred by all the other diva-esque kind of things. And yes, it was that time where, she was, barking like a dog and doing the whole bending over and stripping in the middle of the ring. I think that is
was all
equally just as much.
Like, she had a whole wrestling career from 2001 to about 2006 where she did arguably her best work. And especially if you haven't seen her in 04, 05 as a heel, it's phenomenal stuff. I'm just saying that the Charlotte Trish match is going to be different for a lot of reasons than Goldberg Ziggler or every time The Undertaker comes back.
So who do you have winning this match? I think you said Charlotte is picking up the victory.
Yeah, I've got Charlotte, Becky, and Bayley.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Trish is winning this match. And the only reason I say it is because they're in Canada and because I don't want Natalya to win. And I think one Canadian is going to win their match, and that is going to be Trish. I don't think that it's going to be a super clean win. I do see like the whole roll-up kind of surprise, so to speak. Maybe Charlotte goes into her own chair. Maybe Charlotte goes into her own exposed turnbuckle. I think that would be the way to do it for Trish, but I do think that Charlotte is extremely favored the entire time. And my hope is that Jerry the King Lawler is commentating throughout.
Oh, really? No. God, Doug. Sometimes, like, I don't know you at all, man. Like, I think Trish gets the visual pin, like ref gets ref bump, and then, like, Trish hits the Trish kick, pins Charlotte 1, 2, 3, kind of keeps her strong in terms of her legacy as, like, a legend in the women's wrestling, canon. But in the end, Charlotte wins. I don't know any rule that says that all the hometown people have to win or some hometown person has to win. I don't see that at all, and I think Becky's going to be more over than Natalya.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I hope you're right, but I think I am. So that's what I'm sad about here. Moving on to the now announced. It was supposed to be Dolph Ziggler versus The Miz. And, the reports were out as of last week. We talked about it last week. We talked about it on the Rhino Wrestling Review, that it is now going to be Dolph Ziggler officially versus Goldberg. Fox, this goes back to the Mr. Main Event topic here. Does Goldberg belong in this match? And where do we go from here?
I'm actually with you here on this. So I'm, taking a deep breath. This is kind of an example of something that could have actually been really cool, right? If it wasn't a match, right? I thought we talked about it a few weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago, where we were like,
we fantasy booked the hell out of this because of how much we don't want to see it.
Well, I don't even think it was because I didn't want to see it. I thought that there would be something with Michaels, which there still could be. But look, if this whole thing is just to get the live crowd to see a spear jackhammer, there are a lot of other ways to do it, right? Dolph Ziggler is arguably doing some of the best work of his career right now. He's on fire. They look like they're behind him. They're pushing him. They're not letting him take a pinfall, right? He's got victories even through shenanigans, but he's got victories over, who was it that he had a victory? Finn Balor. He had a couple of those. And he
Mustafa Ali.
What's that? Yeah. He against Ali, and he didn't take the pin against Rollins, right? It would have been easy. Any version of Ziggler before this takes that pin. And so I really like what they're doing with him. He's become a very, hateable character. I think he's playing it right. The fact that, and what is getting him over is the thing that we talked about, where we said he needs to do something dastardly. He needs to push the limit on being a heel. He can't just be a heel because he's a whiny baby. He's got to be a heel because he's actually someone that does heinous things. The kind of things that JR would be like, have you no soul? God damn you. You can edit me out. But it's like, those are the things that JR, where he would literally you're a terrible human being. And he's doing that. And that's what he did when he kicked Shawn Michaels. That really kickstarted this. And to see that snuffed out with a spear jackhammer in a quote unquote match, that's awful. So I really hope that turns into an angle. I think they could have booked Ms. Ziggler and then saved the Goldberg reveal for SummerSlam. And then you get your spear jackhammer, crowd is happy, they get to see it, but it's not like Ziggler takes an L by looking like a complete chump.
Yeah, and I would have absolutely preferred that. And let's talk about what happened this past week. So, for one, we obviously, mentioned that Ziggler and Miz had this contract signing. Miz revealed that it was going to be Goldberg instead. Goldberg chases Ziggler out of the ring. On SmackDown, we saw something a little bit different. We saw that dastardly side that you mentioned from Ziggler taking out Rey Mysterio. And then we saw Ali come out and take the spot of Mysterio. And real quick, let's pause there for a second with Ali. is this his new gimmick now? You know, someone took his spot being injured, so now he's going to take other people's spots being injured. He did it with Finn Balor for the Intercontinental title. Now he did it with Rey Mysterio for the Ziggler match. Is this his new thing?
I'm not sure I'm on board if that's his new thing. Because I liked that he faced Shinsuke at Smackville. Nope, that doesn't have the same ring to it. It's still bad. It's still bad in any voice. But I liked it there. But then I was like, oh gosh, he's doing that every time. I'm willing to see where it goes, but it didn't really work out because he took an L.
Yeah. I mean, he had these amazing promos where he's going to come back for the WWE Championship. I think that the injury to Finn Balor forced Ali coming back early to be at that Smackville show, and now he's just having this gimmick of what seems to be, I'm taking the spot of the injured guy. So, I mean, I guess if that's what he's going to happen, that's what's going to happen. But
he should have jumped. He should have jumped right in and potentially been. He potentially should have made a bigger splash than he did, because I like those promos. I like the I call them the selfie promos, but he's just walking around with his phone. But I liked it. It had a lot of intensity, a lot of passion, and he's like, you can't keep me down, and I'll write my story with blood if I have to. And it was some good stuff, man.
Going back to Goldberg and Ziggler, so with Goldberg and Ziggler's match obviously taking place in Canada, of all places. Canada has been known to be what JBL, I guess, would have called the bizarro world, or, it's different and people cheer whoever they want to cheer, whatever.
That's the WWE propaganda machine for you.
Is Goldberg going to get a good reaction in Canada, do you think?
I think his initial entrance will, right? I think the initial,
nostalgia.
And then, he comes out and the pyros go off. I think that'll get a pop. But that's just because, hey, I got to see Goldberg's entrance live, and it kind of brings back memories of when I was a kid, and that'll get a pop. But I think then once literally the smoke clears from his entrance and he gets in the ring, I don't think that lasts. He might get the Goldberg chant just because that's fun to do. But I gotta say, if he just goes out and crushes Ziggler in about 100 seconds, that's gonna go over like a fart in church.
That's the only thing that makes sense to me, honestly, in this match. So I value, as you know, consistency. I value power levels, so to speak. If Brock Lesnar is beat by Goldberg in less than 30 seconds, what should Goldberg be able to do to Dolph Ziggler? I think he should be able to do the exact same thing, if not in 10 seconds, and decimate Dolph Ziggler. The only way that does not happen, a weapon is used, some kind of
some kind of equalizer,
weird finish. Maybe, and you and I talked about what if Shawn Michaels came in and super kicked Goldberg. I mean, there's so many things that need to happen to be able to have Ziggler be fair in this match. Otherwise, if it's clean and Ziggler can fight back, it just doesn't make any sense to me consistency-wise. If we're talking clean finish, Goldberg has to win and do it quick, decimating Ziggler.
All right, get this. All right, hold on. Just had an idea, because I do love the challenge of making chicken salad out of chicken crap here. What if they play up the concussion in Saudi Arabia? Okay, hear me out. Goldberg goes for the spear. Ziggler's getting his ass handed to him. Okay, goes for the spear. Ziggler moves, and in real life in Saudi Arabia, Goldberg hit the pole, the turnbuckle pole, and knocked himself stupid. What if they recreate that, and he's kind of loopy or whatever, rolls out of the ring, and they do the whole the medical doctors are checking on him, put the flashlight in his eyes, and he's growling like he always does, and he doesn't want to give up, but he can't stand up, and they play up the Saudi Arabia concussion, right? And then as doctors are checking on him, Ziggler gives him a super kick outside, okay? that doesn't make Ziggler look weak, but it doesn't make Goldberg look weak, but it makes Ziggler look like an even bigger douche. And it's like that really like, oh my God, you're terrible. You are an ass. But I think that could work. Like that could totally work where he's getting killed, and then he gets like a count-out victory or the match stopped due to concussion or something.
That's brilliant. I actually love that. And, if the medical team takes Goldberg to the back, maybe Dolph forces the ref to count to raise his hand in victory kind of thing, I think that would be brilliant. It doesn't hurt either one. It kind of lets Goldberg go out, peacefully, maybe be able to put over another guy. I love that. That is fantastic.
Book it. All right, we'll see on Sunday. Who booked it better? It's going to be 100-second squash, and we're going to be like, oh, man.
Yeah, so my prediction's still 100-second squash. Fox, I hope your prediction comes true.
I'm going to go with my prediction just because it's more interesting.
It is way more interesting. Moving on to the next match, we've seen a very good build, in my opinion, with Kofi Kingston defending his championship, his WWE championship, against Randy Orton. Now, there have been some questions of people saying, is this right for Randy Orton to be bringing up real life, or is he just being a douche or whatever it might be? I'm a huge fan of the way that this has been built. I'm a huge fan of these amazing video packages that we've seen on SmackDown with these interviews and what it means to Kofi, and the way they've been doing the whole Orton thing. Even though I think that they've been playing up too much the whole stupid thing, and while that's what I did want to see out of this, it's been a little bit too much. But I'm okay with it. Overall, I do think that Kofi wins this match. He walks out as champion, solidifying him, validating him getting rid of that demon from his past from 10 years ago, and taking out Randy Orton once and for all.
Yeah, there's part of me that is like, what if Randy wins? I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think that would, keeps the story going, right?
Well, I asked you this question over the weekend is, if not Randy, who takes the title from Kofi?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't sit there and go, well, who's on SmackDown and who's on Raw? Because I don't know. Everybody jumping around from brand to brand, but Randy Orton beating Kofi as the continuation of the saga would be an interesting choice, as long as they have the rest of it planned and it ends with Kofi regaining it and things like that. But I've got Kofi winning in this one. I think Randy Orton is at that stage of his career where he kind of just wants to come and go as he pleases, and he's earned that right to do that. But this has been such a fantastic build. I'm a huge fan of like sit down interviews. I feel like they seem more like unscripted, or they at least get a longer leash in terms of what they're allowed to say. I've loved the video packages. Video people deserve their own Hall of Fame wing because they're amazing at what they do. But I've loved that, he used his influence. I used my influence to build people up. He used his influence to bring me down. Yeah, they've played this stupid thing, but I'm prefer that they acknowledge it than kind of cut it out as if like we don't know what they're talking about. It is such an infamous like moment in wrestling that I definitely think that the way that they they've presented it has been amazing, and I'm looking for. I love that they've sort of kept their hands off of each other, no matches, none of that. I'm really stoked for this match.
Yeah, same here. Again, I think that we both are agreeing that Kofi's making that on top, but neither of us would be upset if the three most dangerous letters in wrestling did happen, and that's an RKO to Kingston with a victory for Orton. Moving on to the WWE Universal Championship, Brock Lesnar defends his championship against a defeated, broken, almost immovable Seth Rollins. I mean, kind of going over some of the things that happened this past week on Raw. I mean, we saw last week the decimation of Seth Rollins. Seth obviously came back out on Raw and was decimated once again. It was kind of horrific to watch. It was, kind of difficult to watch. It reminded me of like one of those National Geographic kind of things where you stay out of the water, like When Brock Attacks kind of thing. And
the Brocodile.
Yeah,
Here
exactly.
we see the saltwater Brocodile.
Yeah, so it was disturbing to see. We ended up seeing Seth cutting this, to me, weird promo that didn't get the reaction that I think he should have gotten, which was the whole, I'm doing this because it's all I got, and I'm going to be at SummerSlam. I have perseverance kind of thing. I mean, what were your thoughts on what happened this week on Raw with Rollins and Lesnar?
Well, first I got to say, because I didn't get a chance to say it last week, but I thought that beatdown was one of the best beatdowns that I've seen in years. That might have been the best beatdown since the Festival of Friendship. I think that you don't need a Crimson Mask. I think Seth Rollins, he's an incredible seller. I think the way that he was like coughing and the blood was coming out of his mouth, like that is a perfect example of how like blood can add to the realism and help you, get immersed in the moment and invested in this. Because now because of that, on this past Monday when Brock hit him with a chair in the ribs, I cringed. He sold it perfectly, and to me, because of that beatdown from the previous week ingrained in my head, I believed every time that he got kicked in the gut or every time Brock like grabbed him around the waist to throw him. I was like, oh, this is gonna be tough. It's gonna be uncomfortable to watch at SummerSlam. But I am excited for this match. I feel like this fool that keeps going back to the girlfriend that abused him or was mean to him and just can't quit it, because I so believe that Lesnar and Rollins have a classic match. They have that potential the same way that like AJ and Brock or Daniel Bryan and Brock, they have that. And I think with Seth playing the underdog, everything says Lesnar should win. But I think Lesnar is going to SmackDown. I think Seth retains. It's going to be a gutsy performance. Rollins is going to earn his paycheck on Sunday.
I would love to see Rollins win. I think that he's starting to slowly redeem himself, although, I don't know if he's exactly there for me yet. I think he could get there if he does win against Brock. That's, I guess, totally fine if Brock does that. But I wouldn't mind if Seth lost and he kind of went away for a little while. I guess we'll see wherever that goes. But I'll just say, for the sake of it here, Brock wins. He retains. It's uncomfortable for Seth, but Seth ultimately has that Rocky kind of moment where he's able to walk out by himself and still have his head held high at the end of the night.
I'd like to see the Seth Rollins that won that gauntlet match.
Yeah, same.
Come back where you're just like, how is he still doing that? People forget, Seth was the first to run that gauntlet before Kofi did. And when Seth did it, people were like, I can't believe this is the longest match in Raw history. Granted, Seth didn't even win that match, but it was like 57 minutes or something that he was in the ring. I'd like to see that Seth Rollins, because that's the guy that I can get behind.
So that is our SummerSlam predictions. Let us know if you agree, disagree on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. You can find us STF Underground, or you can email us some of your thoughts at stfunderground@gmail.com.
Like what you heard? New episodes drop every week. If you want more content, follow us on Facebook at STF Underground Podcast or on Twitter and Instagram at STF Underground.